Hey guys, how are we going today? It is Zach here. Hope you guys have all been well in the few months I have been away. So today what we have is a really kind of important thing, and it's actually a completely new thing that I have going on right now. So what it is a new series called Why America Why. So what it is it's really just looking at, different American aspects of their lives. So it's really looking at, I know some issues I have, like education and whatnot, and what we're going to do is we are going to compare them to the rest of the world. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the pros and cons of each system in different countries and whatnot, and kind of comparing them and figuring out what's wrong, how can we help, and what we can do to kind of tackle particular issues. So since this is a finance channel, I thought it would be kind of good to kind of integrate a finance topic into this. So what it is we are talking about student loans. As we know, it's kind of become a big massive thing over the last 10 years or so, where it's kind of become popular to see student loans as a bad thing, really, at the end of the day. Well, by people in the finance community, student loans are kind of perceived as a bad thing now, because really what you're doing is you are spending money in order to get a type of education, when at the end of the day, the education is going to make a hell of a lot of difference. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about what America's version of this is and what the Australian version, because whenever I look online, people in America are always talking about how horrible it is and how to never go to university isn't a thing that you really want to go to because you get yourself into this debt. Whereas in Australia, this isn't kind of a massive problem. Like if you look at in America, 1/6 of the people in America actually have some type of college or student debt, and that's equal to $1.6 trillion overall. Whereas in Australia, it's kind of just not a problem at all, and it's because of the system that we actually have implemented. And what that does is it kind of enables us to not have this problem, and it enables young people to really grow their wealth while they're still paying off that loan. So what we're going to do is we are going to look at the two different types, and we're going to compare the two. But first, before we get into the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot. I really want to keep these videos going. I'm going to do a massive series on this. We're going to do education, military, etc., and we're going to go and compare everything. It's really going to be really good. I find this stuff really interesting. I hope you guys do. I really like and enjoy looking at this type of stuff and looking at different countries. It's always really interesting to see how this stuff works in different countries. Like the American system is quite different from the Australian, and I know the UK is kind of like a middle between the two of them as well. So in the American system, there are two types of student loans that people are able to get. So the main type which people get, which 93% of Americans have, is a federal loan. What this is they get the loan from the government, and they pay a low interest rate over the next 10 years or 30 years, whichever one they have. And that's really, how long the loan is dependent on the federal or whatever they apply for. And then the other 7% of people get their loans from a finance company or just some type of bank or whatnot. And what this is normally is a high interest rate loan, because the interest rate that you get from it actually isn't determined by the government or whatnot. It's determined by the bank, and what they use is your credit history rating. And a lot of people, when they're going into uni, they're obviously going to be 18 and they're not going to have actually any credit at all, and they're not going to know about it at all. So at the end of the day, what happens is people in America end up having these $40,000, $50,000 loans, but then having to pay 8% interest rate over 10 years. That's horrible. That's really gonna, especially at a young age when you graduate at 20, 21, 22, that's really gonna kill your ability that you have in order to, really build your wealth and create kind of a young entrepreneurial mindset of really, building your wealth, having investments, all that stuff. It really hinders that. Really, it's quite similar to how you get actually any loan from a bank. You have your principal, you have your interest you pay, and you have a time period that you pay. It's really quite simple of how they've done it, but it doesn't work in the way, because it really hinders all those younger people who are getting it and trying to get ahead by getting education. It's just really not helpful for them. Whereas the Australian system is quite different. What we do is we use a HEX bet system. So what this is we don't actually use any banks at all. Everything comes from the government. What this is so HEX is HECS, so higher education help. So what it is it's just a type of debt that we have. It's a very low interest rate that just keeps above inflation, and then you only ever have to start paying it off once you earn above a certain threshold. So right now in Australia, it changes every year, the threshold. Right now in Australia, it is $46,620 for the lowest threshold. At that point, there's a gap where you pay 1%, and then it goes up incrementally 0.5% until you get to $136,000. I will chuck it up on the screen now for you guys to have a look on what the actual all the incomes are. What this means is if you actually never earn above that $46,000 mark in Australia, you actually never have to pay this off. So for example, if I was to study in Australia like I am right now, and then what you do is once you study, you go over to, let's say, the UK straight away, and you never actually earn above that $46,000 in Australia, you never actually have to pay off your fees at all. You technically have a free education, really, a free university degree, because that is an Australian thing only. You know, you have to pay tax. It comes out of your taxes at the end of the day. You know, so if I was to do that, I would never have to pay my HECS debt at all. I would essentially have a free education for my life. I could go and do a master's, have $100,000 and go overseas, wouldn't have to pay a single cent of my HECS debt ever. It's pretty good. So really the main differences between these two kind of systems is that the Australian system, it allows a low interest rate that keeps it above inflation. So it means that you're not going to be paying a hell of a lot of money. So essentially the difference between the two is that the Australian one has a very low interest rate everywhere. So whereas the American one, you're going to have a high interest rate if you're going to do commercial banks, where you're going to have a low interest rate if you're going to do the federal one, which most people do. However, what also happens is that there's subcategories within the American one, within the federal, and it depends on what you actually are eligible to apply for. What this means is that essentially the Australian version is cheaper because you aren't paying any interest over time, because it's just keeping it above inflation. End of the day, inflation's only in Australia, it's only 1.5%, whereas in America it's 2.5%. You know, it's really quite good. So the second difference between the two of them is that we have the minimum amount that you have to earn until you start paying. Now this is really good because you can still earn money while you're in university. You can earn up to $46,500 a year and not have to pay any of your HECS debt back at all. You can continue growing wealth, you can buy a house, you can do other stuff without this looming debt kind of being held over you, really, end of the day. So it means you don't have to pay it off straight away. You know, you can keep your time, you can do your low wage job. You know, you can really just keep this going. You know, so and then the third difference is that the amount that we actually have to pay back is a hell of a lot. So if you look at, I'll put the threshold thing back up again. So what it is, if you actually look at it, you're actually not paying a hell of a lot. Say for example, you do a 4-year degree, double degree, and then you have a $40,000 HECS loan, right? And then you're earning, when you come back, you're earning what? Let's say $70,000 a year. That's, if you look at the thing, you're going to be paying 4%. 4% of $40,000 every year is not actually a lot of money when you're earning $70,000. It's not. It's literally a few weeks worth. It's 2 weeks worth of work. At the end of the day, it's not a lot what you're doing. And what these three things combined, what they do is they actually allow the younger Australians people to get forward with their wealth building, and really they actually like enable us to build our wealth a lot easier and a lot better. You know, it means we don't have that looming threat of we have to pay the bank back straight away. You know, in Australia that doesn't happen at all with our HECS debt. It does with mortgages, you know, mortgage, car loans and all that stuff, same thing everywhere. But with our HECS debt in Australia, with our student loans, you know, it doesn't really actually happen at all. In Australia, everyone who is an Australian resident is actually eligible towards a HECS debt, whereas in America, you know, you have to apply for your federal grant, and then some people sometimes don't get it if they don't meet the requirements, and then they have to go for the higher interest ones where they're paying 7-8% on their student loans, and that's just ridiculous. You know, imagine being 22, having $50,000 worth of student loans and 7-8% on it. That's a hell of a lot of money that you're paying off at 22, especially if you're only earning $30,000 a year out of uni. That is a crap ton of money that you're actually having to earn and actually having to pay off. And you know, that's just not good, it's not healthy for your finances as well. It's really hard for you to budget on that amount of money. It's just really not fun at all. If these three things were to be implemented into the American system, it would really help with this kind of massive culture, $1.6 trillion, that actually needs to be paid off, because it means that people aren't going to be worried, people aren't going to be going into debt so easily. It's not going to be ruining people's credit score. Hexter in Australia doesn't affect your credit score at all, it just doesn't affect anything really. It's just something comes with your taxes. You have your tax, and then really in Australia you can do something called salary sacrificing, and it comes out of your pay automatically, and sometimes you get some back of it tax. It depends on depending on the tax code, depending on how much you actually earn. Now, it actually really is quite a good system we have here in Australia. I think the Americans really need to find a way of implementing some of this, and it would really help their system a lot. Anyway guys, that is all for me today. I hope you guys have all enjoyed. Really hit that like button and subscribe. Share this video as much as you can. I would really love to get this YouTube channel really up and going again, get it back, and then just really keep on building. Anyway guys, thank you. I'll see you next time.